Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Andrew. I'm going to be demoing you guys uh, Angular guards today. So we're going to start off taking a look at the CanLoad guard. And in order to do that, we're going to need to cover lazy loading first. So to begin with, we're going to use an application that I had put together in one of my other videos, uh, particularly the Angular 7 Redux video. I encourage you to check it out. But so for now, let's check out to the master branch from there, and we'll get started from there. So go to your editor and say git checkout. Well, first clone the repository and then check out to the master branch. Okay, so we're at the master branch now. Uh, Let me close all the files. And now let's get started. So we're going to be covering, as I mentioned a second ago, a couple different guards. One of them is called CanLoad, and another one is called CanActivate. There's also CanActivate child and CanDeactivate. Those are four different guards which serve different purposes within Angular. So let's get started with lazy loading because we'll need to cover that in order to be able to use the CanLoad guard. So to begin with, let's go ahead and start up our Angular server. Uh, so one thing I want to note is that in the build in the terminal, as you can see, we have this main.js file here, and it's 57 kilobytes. I'm actually going to go ahead and use the Windows snipping tool to just take a quick screen capture of that. Because we're going to illustrate what happens in a second. So we're going to go ahead and save it into the assets folder. I'm going to call it without lazy loading. Without lazy loading. Okay. So that shows up over here. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and actually get lazy loading going in one of our for one of our modules. So in our routing module over here, you can see that we are simply just rendering this dashboard component without any type of guard. So instead of doing that, we're going to modify this a bit. Let me put this on a new line, make it nice and neat. Okay, so when I start typing the word can, you can see the four guards that I mentioned earlier. CanActivate, CanLoad, CanActivate child, and CanDeactivate. So the CanActivate one will specify that we can, it will specify whether or not we can activate this one route or this route plus all of the children. The CanActivate child will only restrict the children of this current route, whereas CanActivate will also specify the current path, not only just the children of it. The CanLoad one will specify whether or not a given module will be able to load. So this is the guard of a module, where and the CanDeactivate one, it behaves a little bit differently than the others. It's recommended to use when a person tries navigating away from a given component or from a given route, which is essentially a given component. And in that case, if they were in the middle of doing something, you could check if the state of whatever they're doing was incomplete, and you could show a warning modal just confirming that they want to navigate away, so that they don't lose their progress in whatever they were doing. So to begin with, we're going to be starting with the CanLoad guard. So in order to work with that, since CanLoad guards for modules, we're going to need to be lazy loading the dashboard module. So to do that, we're going to use the load children attribute, and we're going to specify using a string, not an import, the relative path to the dashboard module in our application structure. So currently we're in this file, and it's in the dashboard folder, and then it's in the dashboard.module file. So dashboard/dashboard.module. The reason we don't import it directly into this file is because if you import it, then it's going to be including it in our main application routing bundle, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having it lazy loaded, because we don't want it to be bundled in with everything. So by specifying it just as a string, that prevents it from running upon building with Webpack. So after specifying the path, we specify the hashtag and then the name of the dashboard module, or the name of the module, which in our case is dashboard module. I should mention that in order to take advantage of lazy loading, you need to be following a modular architecture. So sometimes a beginning programmer or someone who's just getting started with Angular, they might just throw everything right into their main app module. However, what you can do is take advantage of these module features, which basically allow you to group together related components and their associated services, and like other stuff as well. But so for example, for our dashboard, we can create a module, and instead of importing all the different components from the dashboard right here in the main module, we would simply import the dashboard module, and then in our dashboard module over here, we would declare all the components that it needs, all the services that it needs, all the services that all of its components need, and any other modules that it specifically depends on. Okay, you can notice in here there's some Redux related libraries. However, you don't need to worry about them for this video. However, I do encourage you to learn about them in general, because it's a good topic to know about. Okay, so going back, so we load that module lazily, which means that once the user navigates to a URL, it will start doing what is called path matching, or path matching. So it'll start with the first item in the routes array. It'll check if the path is a match. If not, it'll go to the next one. So if when the user logs in our current application, they navigate to the dashboard page. So once that happens, it'll check, is this a path match? Well, so far it is yes. So then it'll check the children, and which means that we have to define children for this path, because we actually do want this to be a full path match so that it'll render correctly the dashboard component. Because notice we had just recently deleted the component specification for what happens when we get to this path. So we need to actually go into the dashboard module and define a child route, which will allow us to kind of fix what we just kind of broke, so to speak. Well, it's not broken, it's just under construction, kind of. But either way, let's go into our dashboard module and make sure that we declare the dashboard component to be rendered once we're at this given path. Okay, so in here, we're going to say router module dot for child, and we actually need to define the child routes here. So let's say routes of type routes equals, and then we're going to have the path. So since we had previously specified dashboard as the starting path on which to match, and in our actual application, we're going to be going to just plain old dashboard, nothing after that, no other slashes or anything. In our child route, it's just going to be the empty string, because we want this to be the full path match. So this way we can render the component that we want. And let's import the router module and specify the routes that we just defined, or the one route that we just defined in this case. Okay, so now in our dashboard module, or sorry, in our app routing module, let's make sure that, sorry, in our main application module, let's make sure that we don't import the dashboard module directly, because that's what we're lazy loading. We don't want it to be included in the Webpack bundle at the very start of the page load. So lazy loading helps minimize the initial page load, which increases the app startup time. Okay, so we go ahead and did that, and make sure everything built correctly, and it did. And I want to actually take another look at this previous file that we, or previous image that we took of the build. So notice at the very beginning, without lazy loading, we didn't have this extra dashboard module.js file. And notice that our main JS file is a lot smaller now. It's only 43 kilobytes versus 57. It's kind of split apart between these two files now, the dashboard module file and the main one, give or take pieces of a kilobyte, but it's mostly split apart. All right, so now I'm going to just show you the application. So we have our login page. When I start typing some text and click the login button is when we get navigated to our dashboard. So okay, so it's still working as expected. So let me refresh the page, and I'm going to open up the network inspector. Okay, so we type a password, and notice when I click the login button, it's going to lazy load the dashboard. So you go to dashboard, and that's when it lazy loads this dashboard module file. So I'm going to do that one more time. One thing I'll show you is that in our main JS file, where is it? Make this a little bit bigger. In our main JS file, if I search for one of the services that's used in the dashboard module, such as dashboard effects, it's not there. And when we log in, search in there, that illustrates that it is there. So that's just kind of an illustration that our lazy loading is working correctly. Okay, so now that we have lazy loading covered, let's move on to route guards. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we're going to cover two route guards. The first one we're going to cover is CanLoad. So let's go into our routing file. And we're going to add a CanLoad guard here. So as I had showed you a second earlier, or maybe 10 minutes earlier, you just type the word can, and then you can get a list of all the different guards that are available. So then we're going to be using the CanLoad one, which will say whether or not we can load this module lazily or not. So we specify an array of guards, and right now we don't have any guards defined, so let's go ahead and define a guard. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and copy. A guard is just a service, so I'm going to go ahead and copy our dashboard service and just paste it just exactly where it was. I'm going to call it the canload.guard.ts. Okay. And I'm going to rename it. Oops, wrong button. I'm going to call it the dashboard, or CanLoad dashboard. And it's going to implement the CanLoad interface. And then we just need to implement the CanLoad operator or function and import any of the types that are required. I'm going to delete what was there before from the service that we copied over. And there. Okay, so here's our guard. We just need to return a Boolean which specified whether or not the user can navigate to the given URL as defined in our routes. And if they can go to that URL, then we can load the given module. So we can return either a Boolean or we can return an observable which emits a Boolean or a promise, etc. But either way, it needs some kind of a Boolean of some form. So let's go ahead and define some of that logic. Before we do that, let's just make sure that we import it into this array of the CanLoad guards that we want to use. Or CanLoad dashboard, that's what I called it. Okay. All right, and since it's a service, we do need to define it or declare it in the imports array of our module. So I'm going to do that in our app routing module. Or the reason we're not doing it in the dashboard module is because this guard is determining whether or not the whole module can load. So we need to do it outside of the dashboard module. And sorry, I had mentioned that we were going to put it in the imports array, but we're actually going to put it in the providers array. That's where all the services go. So let's go to the app routing module and in the providers array, let's say CanLoad dashboard. Okay, cool. So we can just return true for now and make sure that it's still working as before. Or we can even add a console log inside CanLoad. This will tell us whether or not our guard is being invoked correctly. So type in a password. Yep, it calls the guard and then we navigate. And if I return false, and try to navigate, it does not navigate, which is great. Okay, so we have our guard working. So now let's put some cool logic in there. So your application security is up to you to determine how you want to best implement it. How I'm going to be implementing it for this application is I'm just going to be checking if we have the user's login token stored in our application's state. In real life, you could make an API call which could determine whether or not the given user has the authority to be accessing a given resource. You could be passing along a token if you want to see what kinds of privilege they have at the given moment in time. However, when it comes down to it, it's really up to you to determine the best way to secure your application. So with that said, I'm going to show you this tool, the guard, which can theoretically prevent the user from loading a given resource. So in order to show you what our application state looks like, I'm going to use the Redux DevTools. Remember, you don't need to know about Redux for this video. What it allows us to do is manage our application state really nice and easily. And I can it has some very nice dev tools that I can just show you the application state on in the browser directly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's this dev tool right here. So here's our state. It's just a JSON object with different sections. Right now, when the page just loads, everything is empty because there's no useful data yet. So, but when we log in, uh, when we log in, login successful, we store the user's token into the application state. So what I'm going to be checking for in our CanLoad guard is whether or not this token is null. So it's inside, in the state, it's just in the auth section, and within there, it's in the token section. So that's going to be kind of my way of mocking this kind of authentication type security thing. So remember, it's just an auth token. That's where we're going to be checking. So back in our code, we're going to inject the Redux store, which is what contains our application state. Oops, wrong import. Okay. So the shortest way to say it, store is an observable. So we can pull some data out of it using the pipe operator, like with any observable. And we can pass an array of, or a list, a comma separated list of transformative operators. So remember, we're getting, from our state, we're getting the auth object, and from within there, we're getting the token. We're going to be using the RxJS pluck operator to map out those sections of the data. And I'm also going to just console log what the transformed data looks like at each step of the process so that you can check it out. And then we're going to use the map operator to transform that data into a Boolean using the double bang operator, which evaluates the truthiness of a JavaScript object literal. So, and then we're going to console log again, and that's all for now. It's not going to work, but I want to show you as it goes along, so that you know how to fix it if you ever encounter this problem. Okay. It's built, so let's go back to our app and refresh. Try logging in. It returns true, so they should be able to navigate. But notice, so here's the token. The token evaluates to true because it does exist and it's not the empty string. So it's returning true from the guard. So true means we should be able to navigate. However, there's a catch with the CanLoad guard. If you Google search, you'll find some people who are very confused about it, complaining, almost saying that it's a bug in Angular, just because it behaves differently than the CanActivate guard. So the catch is that it needs to complete this. It expects if you're using an observable in here, it expects that observable to complete before it'll take any action. So we can either use the take operator and just take the first value that comes through the observable and then complete the observable. That will work. Also, a slightly cleaner way to say the same thing is use the first operator. So let's go ahead and try that one more time. Login. And now we have the same functionality as before. However, we're now taking advantage of the CanLoad guard. So what we can do is log out. And now that logging out cleared out the token. So if I manually would try going to dashboard, it's not going to be able to load anything because manually going in the browser's nav bar will cause a page refresh. So the Angular app is going to load up. It's going to try going to the dashboard, but it just fails, and doesn't do anything from there. So we just get a white page. So that's not very pleasant. So what I'm going to do is we're going to navigate if they don't have, if the guard rejects them, and we're just going to navigate them to the login page. So we're going to do that using the tap operator. Tap operator lets you do anything pretty much, so without even transforming the data directly. So we're just going to check the results, or has permission, or is permitted, and we're going to check if they're not permitted. Then we're going to use the router, so we just need to inject that real quick. We're going to say this router navigate by URL to login, or even /login, it's fine. It doesn't really matter in our instance. So now if I try navigating to dashboard, it'll redirect us to the login page. Cool. So now you think it's all good and your dashboard module is all secure and stuff. So let's try logging in. Let's get rid of those console logs first, because they're kind of annoying. Actually, yeah. I'm just gonna actually, all right, whatever. So let's log in, log out, and now let's manually, actually, we're going to need to use a button to do this, because if I manually go to the dashboard page, it'll reload the page. I'm trying to simulate like what a kind of a hacker would try to do. So let's go to the login component and just create a button here. And within there, let's use the router link directive. To navigate to the dashboard page programmatically. Go to dashboard directly. And I believe we need to add the routing module to the login. We need to add the routing module to the module where we're using the login component, which is in our app auth module. Yeah, so in here we're going to need to import the routing module. Okay. And now if we go to our app, so if I click on go into dashboard directly, it's not going to go there. However, if I log in first, that loads our dashboard module, as you can see here. However, if I log out now, it's still loaded, the dashboard module. That guard that we had implemented, look, I can navigate there now because it's already loaded, the module. That guard only prevents things from loading. So once it's loaded, you're kind of in a state that many people might not even be aware of. So I did some searching online, and there is a way to get reference to the module using the ng template ref type. However, it can get kind of tricky to know exactly when you can destroy it using the destroy method on it. The reason for that is because in order to destroy it, you need reference to it. And in order to reference the module, you need to load it. But since we're lazy loading it, the only way to really do it is with it, to destroy it properly would be from within the module itself. So it can, I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but it can get really tricky if you try going down that path. Um, yeah, so the way I recommend getting around this issue is just using, instead of destroying it manually, I would just recommend adding another guard, which is why I'm introducing you to the CanLoad guard, or sorry, the CanActivate guard next. So to do that, um, let's go into our code again, and let's copy and paste our CanLoad guard, and the new name is going to be CanActivate. So this whole first thing kind of gives you the hint that the observable is going to complete after just once. So because it's only loading once. So I mean, it kind of gives you the hint as to that issue that I just showed you. So anyways, let's go into the CanActivate one now. And we're going to rename it CanActivate dashboard. And it's going to implement the CanActivate function, or interface, sorry. And we're going to trying to get it to prompt me. Okay, there we go. Implement the method. And we're just going to copy everything, or take everything from the CanLoad function and just throw it into there. Add the imports. Okay. So for the CanActivate one, we don't need the first operator because it'll check every time, and the API documentation says that you don't need it to complete. It'll continually observe for when the user is allowed to activate a given route. So that's what the CanActivate guard does. It just checks if the user can activate a given route in the router configuration. So if you go through the path matching and a certain set of routes and subroutes and children routes are activated based on the URL specified, then the given CanActivate guard will specify whether or not we can actually activate it, which means that the user can correctly see what we're trying to render. Otherwise, they can't. Similar with the CanLoad guard, except this isn't with loading, it's just rendering. So we're going to import that in the CanActivate section. And remember, it's a service, so we need to declare it in our module down here. Okay, and in both of our guards, we're routing right now, so we don't need to do it in both of them. So the CanLoad guard comes first. So let's not do any routing in the CanLoad guard. Let's just say hello from CanLoad guard. Something happened. I deleted something. Undo that. Nope, we were good. I thought I deleted some important logic, but I didn't. So let's just redo that. Say hello from CanLoad guard, and in our other guard, which is CanActivate, we'll say, in the tap operator, we'll say hello from CanActivate guard. All right, we can get rid of the router from this CanLoad guard and optimize the imports and all that good stuff. So now when we run our application, we try going to the dashboard directly, can't. If we try logging in, for some reason the CanLoad guard isn't working right now. Let's check it out. So actually, going back to our CanLoad guard, let's actually put the routing back in there. The reason is because since the CanLoad guard operates before the CanActivate guard, what happens if they try going to the dashboard page from the very beginning, from the page load? In that case, they wouldn't be able to, they would get rejected by the CanLoad guard. However, they wouldn't be redirected back to the login page since the CanActivate guard would never even get to run. So let's go ahead and put this back into the CanLoad guard. And once again, we're just going to import the store or the router. And we're going to ignore my dog barking and fix the log statement. And I have found what was wrong. I forgot to write console log. I was just returning a string in the tab function. So the guard probably was working, we just weren't returning, we weren't actually console logging out anything. So if I try going to the dashboard directly, we get the CanLoad guard. Sorry, every time I click it increases the number. So the CanLoad guard is still working correctly. However, once I log in now, you can see that the CanLoad guard works, the CanActivate guard works right after that. And then if we log out, now here's where the issue was previously, because the page the module is already loaded. However, now if we try going to the dashboard directly, we only get the CanActivate guard and we get rejected by the CanActivate guard. So yeah, there you have it. That's the CanLoad guard and the CanActivate guard. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.